Praying for all of those who ain't got it. We gotta get it there. We gotta get it, yeah. Yeah, the people starving for something new. They starving for it.
Did you have fun at school today, Trini?
My little man go to bed so hungry. Get up, go to school with his nose runny. Come home with his nose bloody. His sister laughing, he like, what's so funny? Till she drowned out by the sounds of hunger pains in his tummy. Nothing in the freezer, nothing in the fridge. Couple of 40 ounces, but nothing for the kids. Little man know to eat to live, but he don't wanna leave the crib. The kid who punched him in his face, house right down the street from his. He went anyway, more scared to face his mom's. Should be him soon as she flip out, seeing his face scarred. Walking past the dope fiends, but they smoking take the place of God. Hopes and dreams pouring out the holes in they face and arms. Little man in the face of harm if he don't eat. He need energy, so when he go to school he can't compete and keep up. All we got is bodegas, but hey, he only got enough for a quart of water and an hour later anyway. Grandma say Jesus will be here any day. Good, cause with nothing to eat it's getting hard to pray. Pray, pray, pray. In order to receive, then we need to give. We gotta feed the kids, they gotta eat to live. In order to receive, then we need to give. We gotta feed the kids, they gotta eat to live. In order to receive, then we need to give. We gotta feed the kids, they gotta eat to live. In order to receive, then we need to give. We gotta feed the kids, they gotta eat to live. Listen.
Welcome everyone this evening. We have light outside here still in Michigan, which is the first time this semester for that to be the case, and a warm day. Welcome wherever you are dialing in from to Food Literacy for All. We're excited for you to join us this evening for a panel of city level folks who work in urban ag at municipalities. So we'll introduce them in a few minutes. This course is unique if you haven't been with us before. It's in its 10th year at the University of Michigan, and it's unique in a couple ways. One, that it engages a community co-instructor along with a University of Michigan instructor. So Julius Buzzard, who I'll introduce in a second, is our community co-instructor and executive director of Growing Hope in IPSI, and I'm your University of Michigan instructor. Also unique in that we engage and have engaged for 10 years a number of community partners who you see at the bottom here from our kind of Southeast Michigan and Detroit and other Southeast Michigan food system nonprofits. And also unique in that you all are welcome to join us, i.e. those of you who aren't students. In addition to our 230 enrolled students, people can join us and do join us from anywhere in the world for free. And we post these online within about a week, so you can go back and watch amazing speakers in food systems, food equity, food sovereignty, food justice from all over the world who have joined us over the last 10 years. You can go and see our video library. So thanks for being here and for University Sustainable Food System Initiative, the Program and Environment, the School for Environment and Sustainability, and all of our community partners for making it happen. The team, as I mentioned, myself and Julius Buzzard, Taylor Julene is here, and she's our graduate and student instructor. Remember, all technical questions, grading questions, etc., go to Taylor. Sammy Maldonado, our course coordinator, and then our support team, Marissa is the one here with us this evening, who helps the IT things run on the back end, and then Sam, who's in the background, our undergrad course assistant, plus all of our community partners and advisors, Jerian Hebron, Chef Phil Jones, Shakara Tyler, Leslie Huey, Alan Hruska, and Clara Gamalski. So it takes a big team to put on this course for all of you. Taylor, take it away for a minute.
So there are many ways you can engage with us. We know this is a big class and it's remote, so got to get creative here. We use the chat to sort of interact with each other. If you have any general comments or urgent questions, if you resonate with what a speaker is saying, or you want to give a shout out to a student for their video submission, use the chat. If you have questions for the speakers, please use the Q&A. So questions that you want us to ask the speakers during the Q&A section, there's a Q&A feature here on Zoom for you. And if you'd like to use the live transcript and closed captioning feature, we offer that as well. So that's that, and we're going to move into our question of the week. So reminder for everyone, students and community members, you'll use the Zoom feature. This is not an iClicker question. And we realize that some of you are more familiar with food policy than others. So just kind of go with your feelings here, but What is one policy or city level action that you would like to see your city do to make local food more accessible? Would you like to see more community gardens and urban farms? Increased funding or grants for local growers? Easier zoning or land use rules for urban ag? Free gardening and farming education programs? More farmers markets or local food hubs? Composting and soil health initiatives or food access programs in historically excluded neighborhoods? And we'll send out these results here in a second. We've got 150 responses out of 224. So we'll wrap it up here in about 10 seconds.
And maybe Taylor, as you're doing that, I can plug following us on social media. We just made our first LinkedIn page, so that's a new presence for us for the Sustainable Food System Initiative, who runs this class. So please go and follow us on LinkedIn. And we've just reactivated our Facebook group. There's been transition, and so we've got access to it now and are starting to post every week about the speakers and other things happening that folks may want to know about. So please go follow us on Facebook as well, and we are on Instagram. And then you can, on our website, find all the videos in the video library, and you could also go right to our YouTube channel, and that's where we upload each video weekly, and you can watch all the past videos.
Great. So let's share these results out. So most people said more community gardens and urban farms. And then the second most chosen options were 3 free gardening and farming education programs. I think that would be amazing. And maybe we'll learn about some that exist today. Increased funding or grants for local growers, and then food access programs in historically excluded neighborhoods. Thanks for participating, everybody. We're going to move into our video of the week. So for new community members and for our speakers today, every week we ask students to offer a 1-minute video reflecting on the readings that they read for this week. And Amanda chose 2 readings just about sort of urban food policy. These were a little bit more academic in nature, which our students aren't necessarily used to for this course, but we got a lot of great responses. So we'll move into that now. We may need someone to click play.
Hey, my name's Carmen Samaniego. I love the urban agriculture study we read this week because I'm a School of Information data analytics student. I loved how this study highlighted for me the complexities that I wasn't fully aware of around urban agriculture. I thought it was interesting how government and nonprofits and public and private groups work together to try and make this happen. It also got me thinking there's like a lot of traditional farming that goes into urban agriculture, and I went outside to look at like what people are doing outside the box, and I found guerrilla grafters, which take ornamental trees in cities. This is an ornamental apple tree, and on this side they like stick branches from a fruiting apple tree on it so that anyone can just have access to food. And I thought that was like a cool rebellious way to put in farming and avoid the governance behind it.
Great. I loved that video. And it's crazy to me that the notion of like urban food forest, just fruit trees in cities, sounds so radical. But I love that you brought in that organization. I will be looking more into them. So thank you. And now we're moving into our poll question. So students, please use iClicker. Give me 1 second to get it going. Community members, we invite you to answer using the Zoom feature. So students, remember that in order to get your participation grade. Uh-oh, iClicker is being weird for me right now. Hang tight. I'm going to close out my iClicker and restart it. And we'll get it running for you.
Let me know if you want me to go on, and we'll come back to the poll question.
Yeah, let's do that while I troubleshoot here.
Okay. Well, community members, go ahead and answer, and we'll show you responses in a minute when we come back to this. So I'll start with the introductions, and after I finish introducing, we can come back to that poll question before Julius then gets into things. We are excited to welcome 3 folks from different parts of the country and with really different kind of backgrounds in food systems, but who've been engaged at the municipal level, helping make these things happen. And I'm hoping our panelists can also give us some context of like how many of you are out there who actually have a paid job in municipalities, in food policy, urban agriculture, etc. Because it's not actually that many, but amazing where it does happen. So Kimberly Acosta is our first person, a lifelong New Englander with passion for learning and centering justice, inclusivity, and accountability in her work. 2016, she graduated from University of New Haven. She's a lifelong resident with a BA in community clinical psychology and a minor in global studies. Served in AmeriCorps Vista for 2 years, and then joined the City of New Haven's Food System Policy Division as a food policy analyst. From then until 2025, she managed a multi-year community-rooted process to create New Haven's first urban agriculture master plan. We're really thrilled to have Kimberly here. And because this is a panel this evening, we don't have presentations with lots of pictures coming through. We gathered and asked our folks for just a few pictures of what does urban agriculture look like in their communities. And so here's a sense of what, a little of what it looks like in New Haven, Connecticut. And next we have a longtime friend and colleague of mine, Patrice Brown. She is the Deputy Director of Urban Agriculture in the City of Detroit, transforms vacant lots and vibrant community gardens and hubs for neighborhood connection. Inspired by shopping at farmers markets and hosting community dinners at her grandparents' church, committed to advancing food sovereignty and environmental justice. She leads inclusive workshops and hands-on trainings in gardening, composting, sustainable agriculture, empowering residents to take control of their food sources. Patrice collaborates with schools, nonprofits, local organizations to expand food literacy and strengthen community resilience. And through policy advocacy, cross-sector partnerships, and youth mentorship, she works to help build a more equitable and sustainable urban food oasis for Detroit. And because I've known Patrice a long time, I could add a little more. She worked for a long time in the farmers market and food access space, which is where we mostly overlap for a lot of years. And I was thrilled when she moved over to City of Detroit, not because we wanted to lose her from Eastern Market, where she did that great work, but because she's a Detroiter who's been in this work in her own home family garden and advocating for the Detroit Black Farmers Fund and other work. Like, she's someone who has been living this work in food systems for a long time. So she's a great person to move over into this role. And we'll tell you about the work there. So welcome, Patrice, and here's some pictures of urban ag in Detroit. Of course, for each of these, there could be an hour's worth of pictures, and it wouldn't even paint the whole picture. So there's some urban ag happening in Detroit. And then Rebecca Siebert is the City of Dallas's comprehensive urban agriculture plan manager. So you'll notice also some different titles, right? Slightly different roles working in this area in different municipalities. So Rebecca facilitates partnerships and develops the collective vision across diverse stakeholders to promote a resilient food system. She's committed to regenerative agriculture models that serve the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profitable livelihood. Her 13 years in food system and sustainability experience includes working in food systems across Europe, strategizing community resiliency through urban design, managing supply chains in the food industry, and advocating for legislative climate action on behalf of marginalized immigrant farmers. She co-founded the Dallas Inner City Growers Network, which is a local nonprofit. And I'm really excited to hear about Dallas there in urban ag. I spent some time years ago in Dallas touring urban ag with some good friends who run Gardeners in Community Development and have been doing urban ag with a lot of new American immigrant communities for a long, long time. So I am really thrilled to have you all here. Probably this class doesn't know that this is actually my area of work, is municipal urban ag. From my municipal food policy overall. Both my research and practice work for a lot of years has been in this space. So I'm particularly thrilled to have these experts with us this evening. Taylor, you ready to go back to the poll question before we pass it over to Julius?
Yeah, let's do it. So, all right, students, we have 130 responses already. What has been your entry point or connection to urban ag? We realize some of you maybe have not yet entered the urban ag universe, but choose one, choose the closest one. And if there's some other way that you've been introduced to urban ag, please share that with us in the chat. Option A, growing food. B, buying or sourcing local food. C, selling or distributing food. D, cooking and or eating. E, social justice or community advocacy. And we have most of our responses now. So most students say B, buying or sourcing local food. And most students also say cooking and eating. 15% say A, 16% say C, selling or distributing, and 6% say E, social justice or community advocacy. That number's a little bit higher on the community side, which makes a lot of sense. Great. We can go on ahead now.
Great. Well, I'm going to pass it over to Julius, our co-instructor. And Julius, maybe you could say like 1 second first about your work in urban ag through Growing Hope, because this is an area of deep expertise for you as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm excited to be here with this panel tonight. And like Amanda mentioned, I am the executive director at Growing Hope, which is in Ypsilanti, and we do work within urban agriculture, both policy level, but also really grassroots, hands-on, working with people getting their hands in the dirt. So I'm excited to be here with you all tonight to get to talk a little bit about urban agriculture. I have a couple of lightning round questions to start us off, and just like a quick piece of housekeeping for folks in the audience, please do use the Q&A as you think of things throughout the next 30 or 40 minutes. And we'll make sure to have some time, 15 or 20 minutes at the end to go through as many of those as we can. So this is a surprise question. I sent you all the questions ahead of time, but I think just a very lightning round. Would love to hear, what was your entry point to urban ag? If it's something that was on that list, great. If it's something else, then that's all great as well. And I'm just gonna, at least as we start, go through using this order that we had as we introduced you. So Kimberly, what was your entry point to urban ag?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think like in working in urban ag, it was definitely I think the social justice piece, I think that's kind of what opened up the door for me a bit more in community advocacy. But then when you reflect more on like how we connect to this food system, I think cooking and eating probably was like my really first entry point.
Awesome. Patrice, you're up.
Everybody has to eat, right? Yes. My entry point to urban ag was starting to work as a food and health fellow at the Eastern Market in 2015. And I probably knew about agriculture since a kid, but I didn't really know what the movement was doing until I started working at Food and Health Fellowship at the Eastern Market in 2015. And it changed my life, and it's the reason why I'm here today. So yeah, appreciate the work that they're doing. And they did do. Shout out to Dan Carmody.
That's awesome. Thanks. And Rebecca, same question to you. Rebecca, I'm not sure if you're having some technical difficulties.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes.
Great. Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi decided to drop. Am I answering my entry point to urban ag?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny, I'm at an urban ag directors conference this weekend and we had to answer the same question, so I'm prepared. But I had to think about it a lot. And originally I said I was interning with the Sierra Club back in 2012, and I was doing the Austin Beyond Coal campaign, and I was articulating like what is climate action now look like. And so I started interviewing farmers at the farmers market and like asking them what it looks like to be impacted by climate. That was in 2012 or 13. But my actual first, similar to how Patrice is saying, was like eating. But I actually was in 2008, spent time on a farm in Denver, like an urban farm in Denver. And my time went to a family's, like they got a farm share. They could, their SNAP and WIC dollars paid for a farm share. But like my volunteer time also directly contributed to a family getting a larger share of produce from that farm. And that was like, I didn't realize that's what urban ag was at the time. I thought I touched into urban ag when I was working in the Sierra Club, and then I realized it was actually 5 years before that.
That's awesome. Thanks for answering that question. I think it's a real grounding piece, and to see how we all sort of get into this part of the work. Very briefly, I got into urban ag because I grew up on a farm, on a rural farm, and try to get as far away from that as possible. But I keep finding myself with my hands in the dirt. So even though I want to live in the city, uh, like you said, Patrice, we got to eat. Um, Another kind of lightning round question, a little bit more time with this one though, and I'll start with you, Rebecca, this time. What is urban agriculture in your city? So we got to see a few of the photos of what it looks like, but if you would just give like a little, snapshot of like who are the people, what is the scale, what's going on in your city?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit analytical, and so if this is boring, I apologize. But basically, our city is 358 square miles. We have about 20 acres of land under urban ag production right now. The in City of Dallas limits, we have just about 2 for-profit farmers. Everyone else is some variation of a nonprofit. But in general, like when talking about food in our city, that's the food system is global, but specifically, like I operate more on a regional scale. And so there's that. A lot of people are not technically in the city of Dallas, but I interact with them. And I would say, like, a lot of landowners are white, and then a lot of the community gardens tend to be in underserved areas that are lacking food access. We have like a lot of like food pantries are really popular, and we don't see that the community garden is really providing that much food access, but it's definitely like a community cohesion item. We also see like the community gardens are like community ag might be an access point to food, but not necessarily the food that was grown on that site. Does that kind of answer what you're looking for?
Yeah, no, that painted a good picture. Patrice, I'm gonna put you on next. What's urban ag look like in Detroit?
Some of the similarities that Rebecca is seeing in urban ag is showing up here as well in the city of Detroit. But if you're from Detroit, you know what's happening with urban ag around, whether it's food access points. When I was working with the Eastern Market, some of our farmers learned that they can have roadside stands. We weren't calling them roadside stands because we didn't think that it was in the rural area farming, but I think roadside stands are very relevant in the urban space. And I think our farmers are learning their rights as farmers in the city. As a part of the urban ag ordinance, they can have a roadside stand and sell all the things that they grow on their land. And some of our farmers are really honing in on that. A lot of things within the circular economy we're seeing in the urban ag space in the city of Detroit right now. We started a composting pilot, and we brought all of the composters in the city together earlier on before we started the pilot to engage with the composters that have been doing the work in the city. And so a lot of our composting partners are very familiar with, how the soil is very important to growing the food. We can't ask our farmers to scale to production farms to help community members in our food insecurity spaces serve them well if we don't help fix the soils. That's a big thing for us in the city. We also see farmers doing value added tasting stations, things of that nature. Like they want to be in community and they want to serve as it relates to food all the way around. So whether it's a meal, whether it's composting, whether it's um, re rescuing food as well. We see all of those things happening in the city of Detroit, and happy to talk more about what other things we're looking at as we get through our discussion today. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Kimberly, will you share a little bit of what urban ag looks like in New Haven area?
Yeah, I think building on what Rebecca and Patrice have shared so far, in New Haven, lots of overlap and similarities. I would say there are two faces of urban ag here in New Haven. They kind of overlap, but not always. So one's really community rooted, kind of dispersed, disconnected, often happening in and led by residents of communities that have or continue to experience injustice and disinvestment. And then the other one's very like organization led, and that face of urban ag in New Haven receives more of that, more shine and more support from local government. But across both of those communities of urban ag, the urban farming exists at different scales and for different reasons. So we have backyard growers growing for themselves, for their households, for their community. Some might be selling on the side, but it's not their primary focus. We have a really long history of keeping chickens here in New Haven. We have community growers, some who are folks are growing alongside each other, others more communally and for different reasons. Some are giving food to food banks, some are giving it to their community, some are maintaining their households. Some entrepreneurs are also in those places. We have several nonprofits here, each with different areas of focus. To highlight one, there's one that's focused on youth leadership through the lens of beekeeping, and two of the photos of urban ag in New Haven that you saw, those two middle ones around beekeeping, was actually taken by one of their youth leaders, Alex Guzman, who also works with FSPD now. We have, school-based for urban farming for different reasons and different scales. There's hydroponics happening, farming, gardening, composting, and then of course, like urban ag entrepreneurs, people who want to grow primarily for income. And so, yeah, it's a really amazing scene for a mid-sized city and sharing a lot with the other cities on this call.
Awesome. There's so many ways that urban ag like plays out in different contexts. It's really inspiring to hear the ways it is in different places throughout our even our country. As Amanda said a little bit earlier, it's in many ways unique to have folks dedicated to doing urban ag, especially at a municipal level. Um, I'd love to hear, I'll start with you, Kimberly, just a little bit about where you sit within relationship with your city, within government, sort of what department, whatever pieces of that feel important to you. And if you have a little bit of the history, like how and why was that position created?
Yeah, of course, happy to share. So when I worked with the City of New Haven, my position existed within the Food System Policy Division, which sits within our Community Services Administration. It's a little bit of an odd place to sit, but that's another story that we probably don't have enough time for. But the division itself was created in 2016, initially with funding from the Kendall Foundation, thanks to really strong advocacy from the community members who are involved in the food system and the Food Policy Council. And then in 2018, the current director, Latha Swami, who's, I believe, yeah, she's at the same Urban Ag conference happening right now in Austin. She came on board and really helped overhaul the focus of the division and the scope of the work and the way that we were approaching the work. And then I joined the division in 2020. We successfully applied for and received one of the $500,000 grants from the then new USDA Office of Urban Ag and Innovative Production. And my role was funded through that for several years. And essentially my primary role was to create the city's first urban ag master plan. And that use of funds was because we had really heard a lot of concerns from community residents, had seen gaps expressed and kind of identified some of the gaps that existed between those two different faces of urban ag in New Haven. And we really wanted to kind of create a plan that was really rooted in the community and meeting their needs and kind of community solutions to addressing those gaps in decision making when it comes to food and ag here in New Haven.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. And it was really interesting to hear the way you shared, like where the funding came from to make it happen, and how that evolved as well. Patrice, I'd love to hear a little bit about how your role came to be.
Yeah. So I joined the city of Detroit in 2024 of May. but I have been the second appointed urban ag director, if you will, in the city of Detroit. And Tafira Rushdan, who also came from Keep Growing Detroit and a native Detroiter, she was selected in 2023 as the very first urban ag director in the city of Detroit. And then we're still under her leadership. She moved and got promoted in her first year and a half at the city to the Office of Sustainability Director. And Urban Ag is nestled under the Office of Sustainability. Both are initiatives under the mayor's office right now. And the role came out of community, similar to what Kimberly is saying. In 2023, Mayor Duggan came to visit the Eastern Market and told us, like, can y'all connect us with farmers? We really want to engage with them. We have this policy that may be affecting them. It was the land value tax policy at the time. And he didn't want that land value tax to negatively affect what was happening in land sales around agricultural practices in the city. In 2013, the city council passed urban ag ordinance. And so it was, I think, Mayor Duggan's way of honoring the urban ag ordinance and all of the community work that kind of was garnered behind that. And what he saw in urban agriculture, it was hard to miss. We are a huge landscape in the city. Keep Growing Detroit is saying that we have 2,400 urban gardens and community farms and privately owned farms in the city right now. And so it's been out of community that our roads exist. And I don't think I would be in my role or be able to do much of any of the work that we're doing in our roads without the urban ag community behind us every day. And we try our best to continue to engage and show up for them. At that time, when Duggan came to us in 23, he asked us what we wanted, but he also had to hear what we were doing. And so there was no connection, I think, around that time to the mayor and what was happening in community. And so this role was called out as something that would allow that to help authentically connect the city government with what was happening on the ground in community as it relates to urban ag. And so I'm blessed to be here. And I stand on the shoulders of giants being here, all our ancestors that does the work and did the work in community. I am grateful. And so, yeah, that's how this role exists, and that's how we want it to remain. So happy to be here and happy to be supported by city government, and every urban ag director can't say that.
Thanks, Patrice. Rebecca, I'd love to hear a little bit both about where you sit in city government, but also, we've mentioned the conference that you're at with other urban ag directors, and if you have any insight from that, just about how many folks, like how rare, how often is it that a city has this sort of investment?
Yeah, let me check. I actually messaged the director of the Urban Ag Directors Network to be like, how many people were at the conference? And she hasn't gotten back to me yet. So if I get a message before the end of this call, I'll let you know what Kate says. So, but I would say, like, just ballpark, there's probably 30 to maybe 40 of us here, but I feel like more like 30. I'm not the best judge at stuff like that. But I'll touch on that in a sec. So my role, I sit in the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, and similar to both Kimberly and Patrice, like I'm under sustainability. I was brought on to create an urban ag plan and a comprehensive urban ag plan. And the role itself, some of the background, we did a climate action plan at the City of Dallas, comprehensive climate action plan, that they started doing planning sessions, like community planning sessions, in can't exactly remember when it was, but the plan was adopted during the pandemic, like right in the mid of 2020, 2021. And so during those climate planning sessions, they did over 200 public meetings, and access to healthy local food was identified as a critical issue by the public. So we have a number of other goals, you know, like water conservation, clean electricity, all of these things, but waste, stuff like that. But food became a critical issue and a goal. So within our climate action plan, the plan I manage is actually an action item underneath there. And I'm the second person as the urban ag manager for the city of Dallas. My predecessor was not a fan of the concept of doing a comprehensive urban ag plan. I don't necessarily blame him, but a lot of times in like government, it is really helpful to have a strategic plan to create some like institutionalization of the work you're doing, so it doesn't just dissolve when someone goes away, which happens all the time. So that guy retired, and I got hired on February 2022. I hit the ground running over the next calendar year. We did 56 one-on-one stakeholder interviews, which, you know, when we talk about Patrice and they have over 2,000 sites in Detroit, 56 sounds like nothing. But like I said, we have a handful of stakeholders, but we don't have a lot of land under production. We have like about 20 acres across the whole city. And, you know, we were trying to meet with stakeholders who actually had some stake in the game. Like they were had interacted with the city in some way to give us what were the gaps, what are the challenges, you know, how can we come alongside you with this plan? So we weren't necessarily meeting with like every backyard gardener. It was more like the structured, organized entities. And then we did a public engagement survey, ended up doing 14 public meetings around the plan. We had case studies, used all of this data to do a draft, and then we took the draft out on like the horse and pony show. We got over like 3,000 inputs on the plan, and then it was adopted in March of 2023. And so that's a bit of the background on where I stand. My role is, like I said, to implement that. So I have implemented a range of ordinances, programs, initiatives, grants to implement that plan, which the plan's like base. Like if there's only one thing I could say I'm charged to do, it's to increase production on Dallas soil. We just do that through a range of mechanisms. And it also touches on food access, food literacy. And then in terms of like, one thing I think that I would say is really different. It was really great to hear Patrice say like her government supports her. I know Kimberly can attest to this from having hung out with Wafa over the last few days. Like that is not the case in majority of cities. It's usually that we're like the mole on the inside, like we're fighting the good fight from the inside. We're trying to advocate on behalf of urban ag. We're trying to reduce regulatory barriers. We're trying to increase access to funding for our stakeholders to get more food being grown, to get more food into the local distribution. And a lot of times we are just not generally supported, whether it's like Parks and Rec fighting that we want to do food on Parks land, and they're like, no, we're not into that. What's the operation and maintenance going to be for it? And you're also taking away like a public good of parks. Or we're always up against like the housing department, like, oh, you want to use adjudicated vacant lots? No, you can't. We need that for housing. Like housing is so critical. We're not giving that to you for ag. Water's another team that's always like bumping heads with us. Like we want to get ag rates for water, and it's like we can't do that. You know, we have to cost recuperate. So a lot of times ag is like the thorn in the side. Code always wants to regulate it. They're like, oh, you got weeds. Your stuff is in like, you know, vision of triangles. And so blessings to you, Patrice, that you have like a supportive team. I'm not bitter.
Appreciate you. I do. I don't want to cut you off either, but I know we're going to get to this. It's just crazy how that can play out. And I'm sorry y'all have to deal with all of it.
Well, hopefully that answers the question, Julius.
Yeah, that was super helpful to hear what it looks like in some different places. I'm gonna get into just a couple questions now for you each uh, about some of the policy. And I'll start with one for you, Kimberly. I'd love if you would share a policy. So either share a policy win that had some sort of material shift in land access, funding, zoning, or power, or not to assume that you've experienced that, um, a hope or dream policy.
Yeah, thanks for that, Julius. Yeah, I'm gonna lean into that second one just based on like where the conversation's headed, and I appreciate this like shift in being, more honest about like what it's like in cities that aren't as supportive. So for us, we've constantly pushed up against policy barriers, but right now, one we're hopeful about is the Urban Ag Master Plan's policy bundle. It's a really robust food and farming policy bundle that directly came from the community. So for our Urban Ag Master Plan process, uh, literally what came, we had a 60-member advisory board, folks from all over the city really wanted to make sure that folks from disinvested communities were overrepresented. So thinking about people who identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of the global majority, immigrants and new Americans who speak as their first language, a language other than English. We had a multilingual board. And made sure that everyone, was having conversations at the same time versus kind of separating out those who prefer to speak different languages other than English. And so we were really intentional from the very beginning that whatever came out of this plan, whatever this plan looked like, had to be a direct reflection of what the community wanted, even if that was at odds with the government and with legislators in our case, aldermen, the Board of Alders. Um, and so for us, we're really excited about the bundle that came out of that because it was a direct reflection of the conversations we were having with the community advisory board. They literally were side by side with us forming these policies. So it covers everything from supporting soil safety. So we have in there, guidelines around how to safely grow in urban soils, how to remediate. We wanted to create, and these were a lot of the recommendations that we moved forward with are borrowed from across the country, best practices based on towns and cities across the country. We did a lot of research there. So a soil bank essentially that people could borrow clean soil that's been supplemented. That one came out of New York. Also going all the way to land tenure, we wanted to propose. We have a newly created land bank. We tried to advocate for urban ag being a legitimate use of land that the land bank could give land and sell land for. Didn't win that fight, but it's in the policy bundle that we're hopeful will move forward. So yeah, a lot in there. We also cover protecting land use for urban ag through zoning. So creating like kind of sub districts within our zoning code to actually protect and keep land for production, for community gardens, and for urban farms. And so a lot of things that fit in there that we're excited for. A better and stronger chicken keeping ordinance, which is really important for New Haven, given how much we love our chickens here. And so, yeah, the barrier we're pushing up against is kind of how policies typically pass in New Haven. Generally, it's proposed from the city's end and it has to receive mayoral approval. The other option is an alderman proposes it and offers it and kind of advances and carries that forward. But we're actually hoping to be a bit different in kind of having it be a proposal offered by the community and having a lot of community folks engage and really making sure that it's reflective of what folks really want to see on the ground.
Thanks, Kimberly. I really love hearing that just like process and the way that you're working with community to build that out. Mix up the order a little bit here, Rebecca. I'm gonna go same sort of question. What is a um, policy win or policy, sort of hope or dream that you have for your community?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one that is kind of complicated as policy can be. So I just dropped a link in the chat to our conference urban ag plan at the city of Dallas if you guys want to know what I'm talking about, starting on like page 81. But we went through and did a full review of our Dallas developmental code and identified a bunch of updates similar to what Kimberly was saying. They had this policy bundle. And so we articulated, these are the changes we want to see. It covered just pretty much everything related to ag that we would hope to have seen. And things from, like urban farm to be declared an urban farm, you had to be at least 3 acres. Well, no one has 3 acres in an urban environment. It's like half an acre if you're lucky. So stuff like that's a mild thing, but we were like recommended changing that definition. Recommended like stuff like removing parking requirements. An ordinance change that we did win was that you weren't allowed to have a farmer's market in a residentially zoned area. We made an ordinance update that says you can, as long as it's at a place that has an existing certificate of occupancy. So like a church, a school, pretty much makes it possible. So that's a win, small win, to put a little happy face on this. But we had gone through with like tweezers and just said, this is what we want to see done. And then we had this Texas state legislation come through in the summer of 2023, the right to farm bill. And it's under House Bill 1750. If anyone's really curious about what it says, you can look it up. Texas State House Bill 1750. And it took away municipalities' regulatory power on agriculture. So it says in there, like, a municipality cannot regulate any form of agriculture, production, ranching, etc. And for them to recapture that power, they have to do a case study with either their city acknowledged or identified public health official, which we don't have one, the county does, and then, or Texas A&M, which is our like agricultural university out here that is pretty much kind of a standard even across the country for agriculture. So anyhow, it's kind of a blessing, even though it's complicated, because you can think of a handful of things. Like we had another director here this weekend that was talking about, they had someone who was composting dead chickens in an urban environment, and how that can create a lot of potential issues. One, smells, disease, if it's not heated properly, all that stuff. And so in our case, if someone was to do that, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. You could have cows in your driveway. The city cannot regulate urban agriculture. So I thought it was great because we had all these really fine-tuned policy updates to change. Like we had code saying you can't be X above grade, like on your yard, you can't be more than this many inches above the land grade. And with this House Bill 1750, it just says you can do whatever you want. City can't regulate it. It's kind of a win. I'm telling people all the time, I'm like, yeah, do a farm stand in your front yard. Like, we can't tell you no. Like, you can sell food, you can sell eggs in your front yard if you want. Like, you can have chickens and your neighbor can't complain about it. It's kind of the wild, wild west out here right now. So that's not exactly a great answer to your question, but I do think the ordinance that we got updated so you can have farmers markets in other areas was like an easy win. Another one I'll share really quick is we did have I wanted some water policy reformation, like was trying to get a ag pricing for water, or even like a waiver for the water meter fee, which is like over $8,000. I know in places like Chicago, it's like $40,000. Like water meters just can be really expensive depending on how built up your city is. So we didn't get the policy reform, but because of that tension, I was able to get support from the water utility and my department to say, we're both getting this pressure, and here's a solution. So we wrote a grant for the public to apply for it, and the budget team actually approved it because they saw where it was like two birds, one stone, like pacifying this issue with water. And then also we had it already identified in our urban ag plan as an item. So that's kind of like a cross collaborative pain point that we created a grant to go to the public so they can utilize those dollars for water and infrastructure. Small examples.
Small but powerful. It takes a lot. It adds up. And I think somebody said in the chat, talked about some of the groundwork that's been laid in the city of Detroit, which is what I'm most familiar with because this is where I live and grew up. And Patrice, I'm going to ask you sort of the inverse of the question. We've heard and you've talked about like the supportive nature of the government and your community, which are all great things. And would love to hear a little bit about what sort of policy barriers you're pushing against and how you're still moving through that.
Okay, y'all. I do not want to sound like it's just super perfect here, okay? Because it is hard work, man. You gotta be really into policy and advocacy. And I just want to say thank you, U of M, for my policy interests, because y'all helped me through that education, okay? Anyway, barriers. We still see a lot of barriers around zoning. So even though we have the urban agricultural ordinance that was passed in 2013 by our city council, wonderful. It's just a lot of gray areas in the ordinance. And I think Kimberly and Rebecca is hinting at this when they talk about their policy wins, is like, yes, we have these kind of like codified languages and definitions on the books around agriculture, but when we talk about the zoning and the changing of use of a vacant lot from a residential zone to a urban ag zone space, it can get gray, and a lot of people don't understand, why it's kind of gray. And I think when I look back on it and read through the ordinance, I can appreciate the gray areas. But I can also say that the gray areas are very confusing for our staff members in the city, as far as like inspectors that go out. Even the managers of those inspectors are sometimes confused around the gray areas in the ordinance and what they should be enforcing in the community around agriculture. And then our residents, of course, who are urban farmers and gardeners in the city, they don't they may not have read the urban ag ordinance in its entirety. So what we were able to do this year, and I would call it a win, a small win, was partner with Keep Growing Detroit to create a rights and responsibilities doc. And I'll put the link in the chat so people can see it, because it just speaks to how confusing all of the different work that people had done before T and I got to the city. It spoke to the depth and the breadth of the work as it relates to policy and zoning and codified law on municipal level. And so we do oftentimes get people who are in the middle of legal cases with the city in the urban ag space, and they want to use those GAMPs, which is right to farm in Michigan. It basically is that language for us, and that law for us. And so it gets a little difficult. But now Rebecca is telling me something that I think is very radical, and it's probably the reason why y'all are Wild Wild West. But it sounds very intriguing to lift some of those state kind of strongholds around some of the agricultural practices that people want to do in urban spaces right now. And I would say to our community defense, on the side of community, what they're seeing is a lot of divestment in our neighborhoods, right, over just the course of time. And I really am excited about our new mayor, Mary Sheffield, because she wants to invest in the neighborhoods, and I think a lot of people didn't think that was the priority of other administrations in the city. And so it seems to be Mayor Sheffield's priority to address all of the vacant land that we see in the city. And no, all of the vacant land, guys, for all you urban ag connoisseurs and lovers, is not going to go towards urban farming and gardening only. I think if I pull a page out of my old policy hat, because I served in the government before this role, is like we all have to find a balance, because there is a lot of vacant land. It's thousands and thousands of vacant lots in the city now because we demolished a whole ton of housing stock that it was just it just wasn't gonna happen. Like we had to demolish. So now we have all of the vacant lots. And the question to community and the leadership in government right now that we're faced with is what do we do? We're at a crossroads and we are talking about the master plan and what the long term of our neighborhoods will look like, and how population growth and what we want to see in community kind of coincide. And we need to really look at those areas where we intersect. And I know we'll talk some about that later, but it's very important that we get the zoning right, that we ease up off some of the regulations as it relates to the building safety and engineering enforcement rules in the city, because it's I think it's making our growers in some cases feel um, like they're doing something wrong when they're not. And so it's just the understanding of the definitions around what a pollinator garden is and what the benefits of those nature-based solutions are for the environment as a whole, and us educating each other. So I'll put those rights and responsibilities in the chat for everybody to see and review, but that's one of our biggest barriers right now in the city.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Patrice. We are going to move very briefly into a quick question, poll question that Taylor's going to lead it, and then have some time for Q&A from the audience.
All right, y'all, here we go. Poll question number 2. Students, hopefully you received a screenshot of my screen. If not, I will read the question out to you. Do you believe that investment in food and agriculture can support community self-determination and development? A, yes. B, no. C, maybe. D, I'm not sure. We have resounding yeses from community and students. 11% are saying no. 16% of students are saying maybe. It looks like most folks are saying yes, and then the second most chosen option is maybe. 84% saying yes, 12% saying maybe. I just want to add something, or just sort of express gratitude, because it's evident to me that all of you are liaisons between the grassroots and the government, municipal government, and that's kind of rare. And so I'm really inspired by all of you, and thank you so much. And my answer would be yes on this one all the way. So moving on from the poll question here. I have to move back and forth between all of these digital tools, so bear with me. Let's see.
I think you're back to Julius
I think
for
we're
the
back
Q&A.
to Q&A.
Great.
Yeah. Great. So we're going to try to get through as many of these questions as we can from our audience. And the first one that I see here is somebody's from sending this in from the LA area, one of the cities that has a USDA Urban County Committee, and is supposed to have an urban service center, but doesn't really. I know that this is what they say. They know that the Dallas and Detroit also have these. Would either of you, Patrice or Rebecca, be willing to share a little bit about how that has been going?
I can start. So I think this is the urban ag office that the USDA was committed to putting into, I think, 17 cities. And this was before our current president. So that this was implemented. And I think because of all of the different changes in our that we've seen in the federal government, this role, I think, or the office was not a lot. It wasn't prioritized well, I would say. And so I appreciate the gesture of it. But I think that they do need some additional like capacity to make the role successful. And we had a really awesome person in the seat like about a year ago, and they left because of the job expectations, I think. And then I haven't met a new director that they had put over the office, but for a long while it was not in the city of Detroit. The office wasn't located inside the city of Detroit. It was, I think, somewhere between Washtenaw County and Wayne County, and it's similarly situated to how our NRCS staff is set up in the region. They split their time between counties, and so it's not really I think serving the immediate city like we really wanted to. But we do have NRCS, and I would say I think even the Urban Ag USDA Urban Ag office is open. They are open, I think, 2 days a week inside the city recently. And I believe that NRCS and this new Office of Urban Ag share a space close right outside of Eastern Market District in the city of Detroit. So I think it's been maybe helpful. I need to gauge our urban ag community to see what benefits they've been getting mostly from it. They've been NRCS has been helping us with water grants that we've been getting. Our urban farmers in the city we've been getting, and so it's really been helpful to have that office to kind of lean on, especially NRCS. And I want to give them a shout out because they've been working as hard as they can and showing up where I think where they saw the shortcomings of the urban ag office. I think they tried to step up and really help our community. And so I'll leave it right there and let Rebecca answer.
Short answer, yeah, it exists. Is it active? I would not say as so much. I don't think it may have something to do with the current administration, but it was active and happening before them, before Trump was in office. So I don't know that it really has anything to do with that. I know when I met, so our USDA Urban Ag office is not far from City Hall, which is where I work. It's like right downtown. And the guy, when he got in there, was like, I had already kind of known him because he, I think, was maybe with NRCS or possibly FSA, which is like, what does FSA stand for? Someone who's an educator, food service something. Oh, farm service agency or something like that. But anyhow, so our urban ag agent came from that background, and his specialty was in like rural ranching, and he was like, yeah, I need to connect with you because like I got a lot to learn about urban ag. I was like, yeah, dude, you're talking about rural ranching, like we got a lot. But so he came to, I did connect him with a handful of our urban ag growers to get water, like what Patrice is saying NRCS does. And he kind of was like a little familiar with that process, but the way of going about it just was not, it was a lot of red tape. I don't know if it's a lot of red tape, but like if you're an urban grower, you are in the field, you're growing, you're not sitting on a computer, you're not like doing paperwork, and digital stuff is just not, like I fill in for that a lot. That's like one of my duties as a public servant is to hop in and help write grants and help fill out these forms and help my stakeholders get those services. And it was like, well, we have to come out and assess the land. And then if we think we'll over like X period of time, we're going to send you what we think you should do for water. And it's generally drip irrigation. I'm in Dallas, Texas dry, and like all the other stuff. And so, but then it was like, if, it's a whole thing. It's pretty cumbersome and understaffed. And the staff that they got in our office came from a rural office. So again, appreciate the gesture. I would like to see it be more successful. I will say it is, I know that the USDA has undergone a lot of changes with the current administration. So I think that it could have gone better, like could have grown more. But because like they started out just like on a weak wobbly leg anyways, and then they never got the pushes they need to really develop it. Like there has not been more investment into those urban ag offices. So the good news is they're still there. It's not disappearing yet, and that means that after this administration there could be, or even maybe possibly with like some of the Maha stuff, there might be some kind of investment in it. Silver lining.
I appreciate you leaving that with the silver lining, Rebecca. Another question from the community here, and I feel like there's this tension that is often highlighted with urban agriculture. So I'm glad somebody asked the question. They said, with urban ag, supporting food access, beautification of communities, and community engagement, how do you consider gentrification and how it can impact spaces that are developing and improving? And I think I'm gonna pick on you, Kimberly, to start. I would think, especially with like the process you laid out of like really working with community, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Julius. It's hard. This one I have so many thoughts on. I can go on forever, so it's gonna be hard to like give something succinct. So first, like kind of going back a bit for the Urban Ag Master Plan, the guiding values for that were equity, community involvement, and ownership, and then explicitly we named protection against gentrification and displacement. We saw the first two values as essential for the third one, right? So I think in my opinion, the best way to really combat gentrification and displacement is to make sure that, in our case, the folks who are often from disinvested communities, ones that experience injustice, and inequities, across the board, if they're the people that you prioritize for involvement and ownership, by default, that helps prevent gentrification and displacement. So that's why we were really intentional with who we involved and who we tried to prioritize involving in our work. And same thing with equity. When you're thinking about ensuring that everyone benefits, that is essential as well. I think so for us, I could say in New Haven that when it comes, and I don't think it's just New Haven, but generally I think gentrification and displacement is the result of not prioritizing those communities as the primary beneficiaries of community development, right? They're usually like an afterthought, I can say, in my experience. It's, reframed as like, don't you want to see your community stronger or revitalized in an economic opportunity? It's like, yes, but are those the people you're thinking about first and foremost? Because then your processes, your policies, your investments would ensure that their success is like the primary goal. And so in New Haven, that's been the challenge, that a lot of our economic development and community development has been about drawing in newcomers and benefiting folks who already have a lot of access, and already just really thinking about the people who have experienced this investment and have, continue to call our communities home and thrive in the face of all of that disinvestment. And so when it comes to urban ag, I think the key is not, I think we have to reframe like urban ag as a big issue. There is like we framed it, I think, in the mainstream conversation as like something new and shiny versus like something that's been happening and has a deep history in cities. So I think it's first of all like relearning or learning about that history and reclaiming it and uplifting it. And then in terms of like the urban ag efforts we're supporting, making sure that they're the ones that are really rooted in those communities, and making sure that you're supporting those communities and continuing to stay where they are and benefit as development happens. So I think it's the same thing with urban ag. And one last thought is just building on something Patrice mentioned earlier around kind of the pitting. I think this is across the country, the pitting of, I think, how affordable housing and housing against urban ag. And I think to me, that's like I can't speak for all cities, but in New Haven, I feel like it's how city government kind of pits the two against each other as if they both can exist. So for us, we also mentioned like how do you create green spaces and productive landscaping throughout the city without compromising on housing. So it's like both and. Can you develop housing and have spaces for people to grow food? Grow food on top of rooftops, edible landscaping across the city, right? Edible fruit trees. So we've thought like that's another piece that I think is important to think about is who's really creating that pitting of the two against one another as well.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Really appreciate the conversation we've been able to have tonight and all of your perspective. And I feel like I wish that this class were another hours because I feel like I could just listen to you all and be with you for all that time and so much more. But we do need to wrap up. And as we do that, I've got another sort of lightning round. As lightning as you can make it. If there's something that, the folks who are here tonight can take with them who are interested in urban ag, either personally or like advancing policy or being involved, moving this work forward. If there's something you would say they could start to do in the next 12 months, what would that thing be? I will start with you, Rebecca, because you unmuted first.
I was like, ooh, I just know what it is. Everyone's going to be like, buy local, eat local. We know, do that. Yes, and amen. But in our government, we have a strong council, weak mayor. I don't know what everyone else's style is, but just depending on your city, your city's structure, I always tell people like get to know your farmers, yes, but like you need to be contacting your city council members. Those are the people. I mean, I know it sounds when I was like in college and I would hear this and I tried to go to council meeting, I was just like, so boring. I can't do it. But I'm telling you now, as an ag professional, yes, Patrice is like, I feel you. The most important thing you can do is email your council members. They are beholden to you. Like your government should be afraid of you, not you afraid of the government. So like they owe you, you put them in office and you need to say to them, hey, I volunteer at this farm. They really need access to water. Or I volunteer at this farm and they don't have enough compost. Can we start a composting program? Or, hey, I live in this neighborhood. I don't have any access to food. I'd love to be able to buy something from a local grower. Like whatever your narrative is, you don't need to be friends with your council member. Just email them because that is how you make policy change. And of course, by eating local, you get to know your local farmer and then you can advocate on those issues.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Kimberly or Patrice, do you have any other last thing to add?
I don't want to put Patrice on the spot, but I'd love to hear from her before I go. Loved her excitement. I feel like she has a lot of gems to add.
Man, I was gonna say, oh my gosh, Rebecca, I have wrote down on the list what I wanted, but we got time. We got time to talk afterwards or later. I wanted to say, piggyback on what Rebecca was saying. Yes, tell your council members, tell your mayors, whatever, whether you have a favorable leadership or not, you need to say what it is that you want because we can only do so much from our seats. Okay. So if they're not hearing from community that these things are important or they bring economic value in some cases, they're not going to do it. The thing that I would leave with y'all is our bigger farms have worker issues like staffing issues, capacity issues. They don't have enough people. The harvest is right, but the laborers are few, right? Well, that's real. That's real on a large scale. It's real on a small scale too. Go volunteer at a farm, whether it's the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, or the end of the season. It's always something to do on a farm. And if you are gardening in your own backyard, you know that it's always something that you need to manicure. It's always something that you need to cut or trim. We just got through pruning fruit trees at Mr. Willie's in Detroit. So do something with an urban farmer this year that you have not yet done before, and pick one volunteer opportunity in each part of the season. And I'm telling you, they're going to love you for it. Thank y'all for this. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, and I can't uplift that enough what both Rebecca and Patrice have said. I think one thing like kind of related to that I want to encourage just because I think it's something that like based on my experience in New Haven is first like learning, like finding out like make sure you understand the landscape and then when you understand it, make sure you go beyond it, go past the people that I think people view as leaders, go to them and then also ask for the people beyond them, right? So that you can really connect with the broader community, get to, looking at connecting with the folks who aren't usually viewed as experts who aren't in the room, like constantly asking who's missing from the room and how are we meeting folks where they are and making these spaces more accessible to them. So like learning and just serving as a connector, right? To that piece around advocacy, make sure that you're connecting with folks who aren't often viewed as decision makers and creating opportunities and authentic relationships to work with them and advocate for those changes. Um, and related to that, um, or the earlier point around like gentrification displacement, work with other groups who in the community who are advocating for justice issues. And so you can help make sure that, food and ag in your city doesn't become a tool or a strategy for gentrification and displacement, right? Work with people working for affordable housing, for social justice, and also like all the other injustices that intersect with our food system, right? The carceral system. Think like just keep learning. When you feel like you've learned enough, keep learning more, keep asking questions, keep finding new people, build those relationships. And when it comes to your city government and your council people, don't know every city, but don't be afraid to embarrass them in public. That when they're not answering you, when they're ignoring your emails, go to the public. I promise you get a better answer sometimes in those cases too.
Thank you again all so much. I feel like we just got started, but uh, reason to keep the conversation going for everybody in their own local space. I'll pass it over to Amanda as we wrap up the course.
Hold on. What is happening? There we go. Hey guys, so we have just a few more minutes left. Students, you need to hold on. There is a poll question at the very end. So hold on. It might be a minute past our 7:50 end time. So thank you guys so much. I could say so many things and I won't. But I will have a chance to in the fall because I'm teaching a local food policy class. It's a new class. I know registration is starting soon. And it is going to get into the brass tacks of food policy at the municipal level, local level, municipal sort of city, township, county, school district, mostly focused on the US, but with some comparative experience into other parts of the world and how local governments work with food. So we will be diving deep into all of this over the course of a whole semester. You're going to have experience thinking about all these policy tools that we heard talked about, plans and ordinances and resolutions and programs and funding, etc. And you're going to really become versed in it. So if you are interested in that, that's an undergrad course. If you're a grad student, please write to your department and say, hey, we should make this a grad course too, which I'd love for it to be in future years. So powering through a few other things upcoming this week, great event. Anyone can join virtual for Pie Day. You can learn about historical pie recipes, and so I encourage you to take a look at this. This is also in the newsletter, so if you can't grab this QR code quickly, take a look in the newsletter for that. And the Sustainable Food System Initiative is a co-sponsor of this in-person event called The Price of Milk. So it's a screening of a documentary with a panel, including the Global VP of Sustainability at Oatly, plant-based milk company, and scholar Margot Finn from University of Michigan. So join us on campus if you're in the area Thursday afternoon for that. We're looking forward to next week. Dr. Asmeret Asafah Berhe is going to be talking about politics and science of our changing soils, climate change and food security. So I'm really excited for this talk. Anyone and everyone, of course, join us. Please spread the word, and you'll get another reminder in our newsletter back on this Friday. So students, it's still 7:49. Community members, you're welcome to log off. We're going to end after this last poll question. What do you believe is the greatest benefit urban agriculture has to communities? Let us know. Feel free to add more in the chat. And while you're doing that, and Taylor's getting those results in, I want to say a final thank you to Kimberly, Patrice, Rebecca, and as always, Julius. Really great to hear and compare and contrast among different cities and hear what your pain points and your challenges are and hear what you've been able to accomplish, which is amazing. Like, I've been doing this work for a long time. Some of you know I'm also a former mayor, but when working in sustainable food and food policy for 25 years, these positions did not exist as you all heard, this kind of offices, these kind of plans, these kind of policy packets, etc. They are the result of this movement growing up and the work that so many have done in community for so long. So it's really exciting that you exist, that you're together, many of you at a conference, to strategize how to move this work forward. Taylor, back to you for results.
Yeah, so let's see here. On the community side, 44% of folks said A, health, 19% said environmental, 25 said social, 8% said economic, 3% said cultural. Pretty similar distribution on the student side. And I don't have access to the chat because I'm in full screen, but I can think of so many more. And just to plus one what Amanda just said, I'm graduating in April and y'all have me looking up municipal level urban ag jobs. So thanks for this inspiring chat. We'll wrap up the poll now. And that's it from me. Oh, no, I am the one that is introducing next week's talk. So next week, as Amanda said, we have Dr. Asmaret Asifa Berhe speaking on the foundation of food, the science and politics of our changing soils. The materials she sent over look really interesting. So students, you'll see those in Perusal and on Canvas. And community members, you have access to our syllabus as well. So if anyone needs access to that, shoot me an email or get on our newsletter at the Sustainable Food System Initiative. And we'll make sure that all of this is accessible to all of you. Join us next week. Spread the word. Thank you so, so much to our panelists. I'm moved by this talk and feel so grateful to be here. And students, we will see you next week.